I never wanted to be the man who ended or started a war. My name is Aidan Reed, and up until 48 hours ago, my biggest diplomatic crisis involved convincing a crab-like ambassador from Thaler Prime that shaking hands wasn't an invitation to mating. Then the urgent recall came. Ambassador Hargrove had been en route to Zarin 4 when his shuttle collided with debris from an old orbital skirmish. Broken ribs, punctured lung, the works. The Terran diplomatic service needed someone who could breathe, speak standard, and not immediately offend both sides. That someone, apparently, was me. I spent the hyperspace jump memorizing briefing files that read like tragedy porn. The Zarin Empire, tall, winged humanoids with skin like burnished silver, had been locked in a grinding war with the Free Worlds Alliance for 8 years. Billions dead, entire system scorched. The latest flashpoint, control of the mineral-rich Vale Nebula. Both sides claimed the other started it. Both were probably right. Zarin 4 was chosen as neutral ground because neither side could afford to glass it without losing face. The planet's surface shimmered under twin suns, oceans the color of molten copper, continents wrapped in perpetual twilight storms. Beautiful, in the way dying stars are beautiful. My shuttle touched down on the landing pad outside the neutral pavilion, a graceful dome of translucent crystal built specifically for these talks. My aide, a 23-year-old named Elias Kane, was already sweating through his uniform despite the climate controls. "Sir, the Zarin delegation landed 20 minutes ago," he whispered as we hurried toward the entrance. "Empress Lyra Vellor herself is leading them. They say she hasn't left the Imperial flagship in 3 years." I adjusted my collar. Great. So I get to babysit royalty with a grudge the size of a nebula. Inside, the air smelled faintly of ozone and incense. Rows of tiered seating curved around a central platform. Coalition representatives in crisp gray uniforms sat on one side, Zarin officers in flowing black and silver robes on the other. And at the very center, elevated on a dais of polished obsidian, sat Empress Lyra Vellor. Even from across the room, she was impossible to ignore. Tall, almost 2 meters, wings folded tightly against her back like obsidian blades. Her face was sharp, regal, pale as moonlight on steel. Silver hair cascaded in intricate braids threaded with glowing filaments. Her eyes, deep amethyst, tracked every movement. I stepped onto the platform. The holographic seal of the Terran Diplomatic Corps shimmered above me. I cleared my throat. "Your Majesty, honored representatives of the Free Worlds Alliance. I am Aidan Reed, here to facilitate." My voice echoed through the chamber, and everything stopped. Empress Lyra's wings snapped open halfway, then froze. Her face drained of what little color it had. Those amethyst eyes locked onto me like targeting lasers. Her mouth parted, but no sound came out. The room held its breath. Then, in a voice that cut through the silence like a blade, "Clear the pavilion. Now." I stood frozen on the platform, the holographic seal still spinning lazily above my head like it hadn't noticed the world had just tilted sideways. Lyra's command, "Clear the pavilion. Now," hadn't been loud, but it carried the weight of someone used to being obeyed without question. Her wings, half unfurled in that initial shock, now trembled at the tips. Her amethyst eyes never left my face. It felt like being stared down by a predator that had just remembered it was starving. The room exploded into chaos. Zarin officers rose in a wave of black silk and silver armor, ears, long and pointed, flattening in alarm. One of them, a grizzled commander with a scar bisecting his left wing membrane, barked something in their melodic, guttural language. Lyra didn't even glance at him. Alliance delegates exchanged glances that ranged from confusion to naked suspicion. A broad-shouldered woman in coalition gray, General Mara Voss, according to the briefing files, half stood, hand drifting toward the ceremonial sidearm everyone pretended wasn't there. Elias appeared at my elbow so fast I almost didn't see him move. "Sir, what the hell?" "Out," I said under my breath. "Now." He hesitated, eyes wide. "Protocol says. Protocol can wait outside with you." He swallowed, gave me one last panicked look, then turned and practically ran for the nearest exit. The rest of the delegations followed more slowly, arguing in low voices, security details shadowing them like wary hounds. The grizzled Zarin commander tried to approach Lyra. She raised one hand. Sharp, imperious, and he stopped dead, wings folding tight against his back in deference or fear. Maybe both. The massive crystal doors hissed shut behind the last retreating figure. Silence rushed in. Just me on the platform. Just her on the obsidian dais. 10 meters of polished floor between us, and it felt like a light year. Lyra took one step forward, then another. Her wings dragged slightly, as though the muscles refused to cooperate. Up close, she was even more striking and more terrifying. The faint metallic sheen of her skin caught the pavilion's soft lighting. Fine silver threads in her braids glowed like captured starlight. But her face was a mask cracking at the edges. She stopped 3 paces away. "Your voice," she said. 2 words. Quiet, almost reverent. I opened my mouth, closed it. My diplomatic training had exactly 0 modules on what to do when an empress recognizes you from a crime you committed 3 years ago. I started. She cut me off with a small, broken sound that might have been a laugh or a sob. I would know it anywhere, even in a crowd of 10,000, even in the dark. Her wings gave a single, violent shudder. I've heard it in my dreams for 3 years. Every night I close my eyes. I hear that voice asking me what I would become, asking me who I would be on the morning after. She took another step, close enough now that I could smell the faint spice of whatever incense clung to her robes, something like cinnamon and lightning. "You told me I would hate the person in the mirror." My throat had gone dry as asteroid regolith. "I told you," she whispered, "to surrender, that the Alliance would kneel or burn. I demanded it. I screamed it into the void." Her eyes searched mine, desperate. "And you answered. You, a stranger on a channel that should have been impossible to reach. You talked for hours. You made me say the words out loud. You made me listen to myself." She lifted a trembling hand as though she might touch my face, then let it fall. "I never deployed Shadow Decay. Because of you." The words landed like a kinetic strike. I felt the floor shift under me. "I never knew your name," she said. I searched. Gods, how I searched. Every intelligence asset, every back-channel favor. Nothing. You vanished like smoke. A bitter smile curved her lips. "And now the universe puts you here, in front of me, to finish what you began 3 years ago." She looked at me like I was both salvation and damnation. "Tell me your name, human." I swallowed once. Twice. "Aidan," I said. "Aidan Reed." Her wings flared wide, then slowly, painfully, folded again. "Aidan Reed," she repeated, tasting the syllables. The voice that haunted me has a name. For a long moment, neither of us moved. Then she straightened, regal once more, though the tremor in her wings betrayed her. "We will speak more. Later, when the others are not listening at the doors." She turned toward the dais, paused. "But know this, Aidan Reed. Whatever happens in these talks, I will not let them take you from me again." She walked away, graceful, controlled, every inch the Empress. I stood there alone in the empty pavilion, heart hammering, wondering exactly how deep the hole I'd just fallen into really was. If you've watched this far, then this story is really interesting to you. Please confirm it by clicking like under this video. It doesn't cost you anything, but it will help me understand what story to publish for you next. Tell me, do you like the comic book style? Let's move on. The silence in the pavilion felt thicker after she walked away. I stayed rooted to the platform for what felt like minutes, but was probably only seconds, replaying her words on loop inside my skull. Shadow Decay. I'd known the name. Everyone in intelligence had. Rumors of a Zarin bioweapon so targeted it could rewrite DNA mid-breath, turning lungs to ash while leaving infrastructure untouched. A clean genocide, they called it in the classified briefs. Efficient. Merciful, some sick bastard had written once. I'd never believed it was real. Until 3 years ago. I'd been 29, stuck on the night shift at Relay Station Epsilon 9, a cold metal box orbiting a dead gas giant on the edge of contested space. 12-hour watches monitoring encrypted chatter nobody expected me to actually understand. Coffee that tasted like burnt wiring. Headphones. Boredom so deep it felt like drowning. Then the burst came. A single, narrowband transmission, Zarin Royal Cipher, level black. Should have been impossible to crack from our rig. But the encryption had glitched, a 1 in a million packet error. My console lit up like Christmas. I should have logged it, alerted command, and gone back to staring at static. Instead, I listened. A woman's voice, low, exhausted, speaking in high Zarin. Not a broadcast. A personal log. She was alone. She was grieving. She was deciding. Dawnbreak is gone. My sister. My niece. 15,000 souls turned to vapor because the Alliance wanted the iridium veins beneath the colony. They call it collateral. I call it murder. A long pause. Breathing that sounded like it hurt. I have authorized Shadow Decay. Deployment window, 72 hours. The virus will seek only Alliance markers. No collateral. No mercy wasted. They will end, and we will rebuild. Another pause. I should feel righteous. I don't. I sat there in the dark, heart slamming against my ribs, listening to an empress talk herself into atrocity. I don't know why I did it. Maybe the coffee had finally killed too many brain cells. Maybe I was just tired of watching people die for rocks in space. I opened a return channel, unencrypted, stupid, suicidal, and spoke. Your Majesty, you don't have to do this. Silence on her end. Then sharp. Who is this? I swallowed. Someone who shouldn't be here. But I am. And I heard what you just said. She laughed, cold, bitter. You think you can stop me, human? I think you're asking yourself the same question. I talked. I asked her to tell me about Dawnbreak. About her sister. About the niece who'd collected glowing crystal fragments and dreamed of being a pilot. I asked her what the morning after would look like. What she would see when she looked in the mirror after billions were dead in her name. I made her say it out loud. Every justification. Every rage-filled reason. Every promise of justice that sounded more and more like vengeance the longer she spoke. Hours passed. She cried once. Quiet. Choked sobs that made my chest hurt. I told her about my mother. About how she died when I was 17 in a shuttle accident nobody could explain. How I'd wanted someone, anyone, to pay. How I'd learned the hard way that revenge doesn't fill holes. It just digs new ones. I didn't preach. I just asked questions until her own voice started answering them. When the channel finally went dark, 4 hours later, she hadn't canceled the order. Not yet. But she hadn't confirmed it either. 2 days later, the whispers started in intel circles. Shadow Decay shelved. No deployment. No explanation. I waited for the hammer. For court-martial. For a quiet reassignment to some frozen rock where nobody would ever find me. It never came. They buried the incident so deep, even I started doubting it had happened. Until today, Lyra, Empress Lyra Vellor, had carried my voice in her head for 3 years. And I'd carried the memory of hers like a ghost I couldn't exorcise. I finally moved. My legs felt wooden as I stepped down from the platform and headed for the exit. The doors slid open. Elias was waiting, pale as death, flanked by 2 Zarin guards who looked ready to shoot me on general principle. Sir, he hissed. What the hell just happened? I forced a smile that felt like breaking glass. Old friends catching up. He stared at me like I'd lost my mind. Maybe I had. The rest of that first day passed in a blur of forced normalcy. The delegations reconvened after a tense 2-hour recess. Nobody asked what had happened behind those sealed doors. Not out loud, anyway. But the look said enough. Zarin officers watched me like I might sprout wings myself. Alliance reps kept their hands suspiciously close to their sides. Elias hovered like a nervous satellite. Datapad clutched, so tight his knuckles were white. I delivered the rest of my opening remarks on autopilot. Economic projections, demilitarization timelines, mutual resource sharing frameworks. Words that sounded hollow even to me. Every time my eyes drifted toward Lyra's dais, I found her already looking back. Amethyst gaze steady now, almost calm. But her wings stayed half-raised. A subtle tell that only someone who'd spent the last 3 years memorizing her body language and secret recordings would notice. When the session finally adjourned, she didn't speak to me again. Not publicly. A single nod as she swept past, robes whispering against the crystal floor. That was all. Back in my assigned quarters, a sleek, impersonal suite overlooking the copper seas. I collapsed onto the bed without bothering to undress. Elias hovered in the doorway, looking like he'd aged 5 years since breakfast. Sir, are you going to tell me what that was? I stared at the ceiling. Not tonight. He waited. Then, quieter, she looked at you like she knew you. Like she'd been waiting. She had, I said. He left without another word. Sleep didn't come easy. When it did, it brought dreams of Relay Station Epsilon 9, the hum of servers, the bitter aftertaste of recycled coffee, the crackle of an impossible channel opening. Her voice again. I should feel righteous. I don't. My own reply, younger, rawer. You don't have to do this. I woke sweating, heart racing, convinced for a split second that the transmission was happening right now. The next morning the talks resumed. Lyra arrived last, wings folded tight, expression unreadable. She took her seat without a word. Then she spoke. The Empire will withdraw all claims to the Veil Nebula's outer bands. In exchange, we request joint stewardship of the Dawnbreak Reconstruction Zone. No military presence from either side for the next decade. The room went dead silent. General Voss nearly choked on her water. The grizzled Zarin commander, General Kale, I'd learned his name, leaned forward so fast his chair creaked. Your Majesty, Lyra raised one hand. The proposal stands. Murmurs erupted. Alliance reps exchanged stunned glances. Even Elias looked like someone had slapped him. It was impossible. The Veil Nebula was the whole damn war. Nobody walked away from iridium deposits that size. Not after 8 years and billions dead. But Lyra wasn't looking at them. She was looking at me. A small, almost imperceptible nod. My pulse hammered. The rest of the day became a whirlwind. Compromise after compromise. Return of POWs without ransom. Shared sensor data on pirate activity in the neutral lanes. A tentative framework for cultural exchange. Something about Zarin poetry being taught in Alliance schools. Every concession felt like a brick pulled from a dam. By evening, the momentum was undeniable. And then the attempt came. It happened during the afternoon recess. I'd stepped into a side corridor for air. Stupid, I know. The corridor was supposed to be secure, monitored by overlapping security grids from both sides. I felt the prick before I registered the movement. A tiny dart, no bigger than a sewing needle, embedded in the side of my neck. The world tilted. Poison. Fast-acting. Neural shutdown. I dropped to one knee, vision narrowing to a tunnel. Footsteps, quick, retreating. Then Elias's voice, high and panicked. Sir. He rounded the corner, datapad in hand. Saw me, saw the dart. He didn't hesitate. He tackled me flat, shielding my body with his own as though expecting a follow-up shot. His free hand slapped the emergency comm on his wrist. Medical. Corridor 7B. Diplomat down, possible poisoning. Security swarmed. Zarin medics first. Ironic, given the source. They yanked the dart free, slapped a neutralizer patch to my neck. Something burned cold through my veins. I stayed conscious long enough to see Lyra burst through the crowd. Her wings were fully extended, maximum threat display. Her face was a mask of fury so pure it made the guards flinch. Who? She demanded. One of her own medics answered in rapid high Zarin. She turned to General Kale. His wings were flat against his back. Guilty. You will answer for this, she said. Quiet. Lethal. Then she knelt beside me. Her hand, cool, steady, cupped my cheek. Stay with me, Aidan Reed. Darkness took me. I woke in the medical bay. White walls, soft blue lighting, the faint hum of diagnostic fields. My neck throbbed where the dart had hit, but the burning in my veins was gone. A Zarin medic, young, wings still dusted with juvenile silver, checked my vitals without meeting my eyes. You're stable, she said in accented standard. The toxin was neurospecific. Fast, but reversible. You're lucky your aid reacted quickly. I tried to sit up. Pain lanced through my skull. Where's? Here. Lyra stepped from the shadows near the door. She'd changed into simpler robes, deep indigo, no embroidery, no glowing threads. Her wings were folded so tightly they almost disappeared against her back. Her face was composed, but the amethyst eyes burned. The medic bowed low and left without another word. We were alone again. Lyra crossed the room in 3 strides and stopped at the edge of the bed. She didn't sit. She didn't touch me. She just looked. I almost lost you, she said quietly. Again, I managed a weak smile. I'm harder to kill than I look. Don't joke. Her voice cracked on the last word. Not about this. She exhaled, slow and controlled. It was Kale, my own general. He believed you had compromised me, that the human voice in my head was a weapon turned against the Empire. He thought killing you would free me. She laughed once, short, bitter. He was half right. You did compromise me. 3 years ago, and I've never been freer. I reached out. My hand found hers. Cool skin, trembling fingers. I didn't come here to haunt you, I said. You didn't have to come at all. The universe did that for us. She turned her hand, lacing her fingers through mine. The contact felt electric and fragile at the same time. I kept your words, she whispered. Every question, every silence. When my council demanded escalation after Veil skirmishes, I heard you ask, what happens on day 73? When they pushed for orbital strikes on civilian habitats, I remembered you saying revenge doesn't fill holes, it digs new ones. Her wings shifted, a small, unconscious tell of emotion. I locked Shadow Decay in Vault Erebus. Triple sealed. Biometric only. I told no one. Not even Kale. For 3 years I carried the guilt of almost using it, and the greater guilt of knowing I might still want to someday. She met my eyes. But every time the rage rose, I heard you. Patient. Tired. Human. Asking me to choose who I wanted to be when the war finally ended. I squeezed her hand. You chose. I chose, she echoed. And now the talks are moving faster than anyone expected. Because of you. Because I trust the man who once risked everything to talk a stranger out of genocide. A pause. I never thanked you. You don't have to. I do. She leaned closer. Thank you, Aidan Reed. For the channel you shouldn't have opened. For the questions you shouldn't have asked. For staying on the line when every rational instinct told you to run. I swallowed. I almost didn't. I almost logged it and walked away. But you didn't. No, I didn't. She smiled. Small, real, heartbreaking. The negotiations resume tomorrow. I will offer more. The Veil's core deposits. Shared sovereignty over the Iridium lanes. Full reconstruction aid for Dawnbreak. Joint funding, no strings. That's unprecedented. So it was a human voice saving an empress from herself. She released my hand slowly, reluctantly. Rest. Elias is outside pacing holes in the floor. He thinks you're dying. I chuckled. Winced. Tell him I'm fine. And tell him, thank you. She nodded. Then, at the door, she paused. One more thing. I raised an eyebrow. When this is over, when the treaty is signed, I want to hear your voice again. Not as mediator. Not as ghost. Just, Aidan. My heart did something complicated in my chest. I'd like that. She left. I lay back, staring at the ceiling, feeling the weight of 3 years lift, just a little. Tomorrow the war might actually end. Because 3 years ago, in the dark of a listening post, one stupid, reckless human had refused to hang up. The medical bay discharged me the next morning with a warning to avoid sudden movements and a patch that would neutralize any lingering toxin for the next 72 hours. Elias practically carried me back to quarters, fussing the whole way like a worried mother hen. You could have died, sir, he kept repeating. A poison dart. In a neutral zone. From her own people. I know, I said. But I didn't. He shot me a look that said he wasn't convinced that was enough. The pavilion reopened at 0900 sharp. Security had tripled. Zarin guards in full combat plating flanked every entrance. Alliance Marines stood opposite, rifles slung, but fingers near triggers. The air crackled with barely restrained violence. Lyra entered last, as always. Her wings were folded, posture regal, but the fury from yesterday still simmered beneath the surface. General Kale was conspicuously absent, arrested at dawn, along with 3 mid-level officers who'd known about the plot and said nothing. Word had spread like plasma fire. She took her seat, looked directly at me. The Empire stands by yesterday's proposals, she announced, and adds one more. Full withdrawal from the disputed Iridium lanes in the Veil Nebula. Joint mining operations under neutral oversight. Profits split 60-40 in favor of reconstruction efforts for Dawnbreak and equivalent alliance losses. Gasps rippled through both delegations. General Voss stood. Your Majesty, that would cede strategic control of. Strategic control, Lyra interrupted, voice like tempered steel, has cost us 3 generations and half our outer colonies. I am done paying that price. She turned to me. Mediator Reed, does the Terran diplomatic corps see merit in this framework? Every eye in the room followed hers. I cleared my throat. It's bold. But if both sides commit to verification protocols and phase demilitarization, yes, it could form the backbone of a lasting accord. Murmurs turned to heated discussion. For the next 6 hours, they tore into details, timelines, inspection rights, escrow accounts for reparations. Lyra answered every objection with calm precision, conceding where needed, holding firm where it mattered. The momentum was unstoppable now. During the evening recess, she requested a private word. We met on a small balcony overlooking the copper seas. 3 moons hung low, painting the water in molten silver. The wind carried the scent of alien kelp and distant storms. She leaned on the railing, wings half spread to catch the breeze. "Kale confessed everything," she said quietly. "He thought you were a deep-cover operative, brainwashing me through some long-range psyop. When I told him the truth, that you were just a tired voice on a crackling channel 3 years ago, he looked at me like I'd lost my mind." She laughed softly. "Maybe I have. You haven't." She turned to face me. "I offered the iridium lanes because I finally believe what you asked me back then. What happens on day 73? If we win through ashes and silence, what do we become?" Her amethyst eyes searched mine. "I want to build something instead. With them. With you watching to make sure I don't forget who I chose to be." I stepped closer. "I'm not going anywhere until the ink's dry." "Good." A small smile. "Because after the treaty, I intend to keep that promise. To hear your voice again. Not as mediator. Just Aidan." The wind tugged at her braids. "And maybe," she added, almost shyly, "you'll tell me more about that mother of yours. About the holes revenge never filled." I nodded. "Deal." We stood in silence for a long time, watching the moons rise higher. Below us, the delegations argued late into the night. Papers were drafted, concessions carved out word by word. Above us, the galaxy turned, indifferent. But for the first time in 8 years, peace didn't feel like a fairy tale. It felt like the next logical step. Because 3 years ago, one reckless human had asked the right questions at the right moment. And an empress had chosen to listen. The treaty was signed on the 9th day, under the crystal dome of the pavilion, with every delegation standing in stiff formality. Pins moved across holographic pads. No speeches, no fanfare, just quiet signatures and the soft chime of confirmation as the document uploaded to galactic archives. I stood beside Lyra during the ceremony, officially the mediator, unofficially something more. Her wings stayed folded, calm for the first time in anyone's memory. When the last seal flashed green, she turned to me, a small, private smile. Afterward, while the others toasted with cautious glasses of something that tasted like liquid starlight, we slipped away to the same balcony. 3 moons rode high. The copper seas glittered below. Wind carried the faint scent of night-blooming kelp. Lyra leaned on the railing, looking out. "It's done," she said softly. "It's done." She turned to me, amethyst eyes catching moonlight. 3 years ago I demanded surrender. Total. Unconditional. The Alliance would kneel or burn. I said those words into the dark. And you answered. Her voice dropped. You haunted me. Every night. Every decision. I kept waiting for the moment I'd wake up and realize it was all a dream. That the voice was just grief playing tricks. She reached out. Cool fingers brushed my cheek. But you're real. Aidan Reed. The man who risked everything to talk a stranger down from the edge. I covered her hand with mine. I almost didn't. I almost hung up. But you didn't. No. She laughed, quiet real. We're both idiots. Probably. She stepped closer. Wings unfolded slowly, sheltering us from the wind like a living cloak. Thank you, she whispered. For the call you shouldn't have made. For staying when you could have run. For reminding me I could choose better. I met her gaze. Thank you for listening. For not deploying Shadow Decay. For building peace instead of ashes. We stood in silence. Moons above, galaxy turning indifferent around us. Somewhere below, Elias was probably drafting a 20,000-word report. Somewhere in the stars, news feeds were exploding with headlines. But here, on this balcony, it was just us. One unauthorized connection 3 years ago. One voice in the dark. One empress who chose mercy. And one human who refused to hang up. The quiet beginning of the end. Thank you for listening to this story to the end. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Write in the comments what moment in this story impressed you the most. Tell me, do you like the comic book style? And also check out the other videos that just appeared on your screen. See you in the next video.